Chapter 17, Mishnah 1. This chapter discusses a base hapras, a place that is tamei by rabbinic law, usually because it might contain pieces of a corpse. As this Mishnah will explain, the typical base hapras is a field containing a grave that has been plowed over. We suspect that the plow scattered fragments of bone from the grave through the field, and if so, anyone who walked through the field might have touched or moved a bone fragment and thereby became tamei. Since it's not very likely that a plow dug deeply enough into the ground to reach a buried corpse, the field is not tamei by biblical law. However, the rabbis ruled that we must be concerned for the possibility that the plow reached the grave, and they decreed that the area of the field around the grave is tamei, and known as a beis hapras. Accordingly, by rabbinic law, a Kohen may not enter a beis hapras, and anyone who enters a beis hapras is considered to have contracted corpse tuma. This Mishnah discusses how large of an area around a plowed grave becomes a beis hapras. One who plows a grave thereby creates a beis hapras. How far from the grave does he make a beis hapras? That is, how large of an area around the grave becomes tamei? The length of the furrow, the ditch in the soil created by the plow. Up to 100 amos long. If a person plows a furrow that begins at the grave and extends for 100 amos, the entire plowed area is a beis hapras. In addition, the beis hapras extends to the width for 100 amos, creating a square 100 amos by 100 amos, which is an area large enough to plant 4 seah of grain. But even if the plowing continued for more than 100 amos from the grave, only an area of 100 amos square becomes tamei. The area more than 100 amos from the grave is not a beis hapras and remains tahor, because a piece of bone will not be carried farther than 100 amos. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. Rabbi Yossi says an area large enough to plant 5 seah of grain becomes a beis hapras. According to Rabbi Yossi, a piece of bone can be carried over a larger area. A space large enough to plant 5 seah of grain, approximately 111 3/4 amos by 111 3/4 amos, and thus an area that size becomes the beis hapras. The Mishnah continues. The above dispute applies only when plowing downhill or on level ground. In these cases, a piece of bone might be dragged over 100 amos square, according to the Tanakama, or a slightly larger area, according to Rabbi Yossi. But when a grave is at the bottom of a hill and the plow is driven uphill from there, bones will not be dragged as far, and thus the beis hapras is smaller. The size of that beis hapras is determined as follows. One places a quarter kav of vetch seeds into the borech of the plow. This is a hollowed-out piece of wood with holes on the bottom that is attached to the plow. It is filled with seeds, and they fall out into the soil as the plow moves. At first, the seeds pour out at a steady pace, and eventually, the flow of seeds slows, until the point where only 3 seeds still fall out, one after the other, and thus 3 vetches will sprout alongside each other at that spot, until there becomes a beis hapras. Beyond that point is tahor, even if it is less than 100 amos from the grave. Rabbi Yossi disputes this ruling as well. Rabbi Yossi says the decree of beis hapras applies only to a downward slope or to flat ground. It does not apply to an upward slope at all. If a person is plowing uphill, no part of the field becomes tamei.